website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, to sign up for our email newsletter as well. All right. Coming up here on the break in a few minutes. So I want to jump into these topics here. Calling numbers 313-778-7600, 313-778-7600 is calling number if you have a question or comment. All right. So we saw that this past Thursday that Joe Biden announced that Kamala Harris would be his VP. I think it was Thursday, would be his VP pick. OK, and a lot of people suspected that. I was one of them. I pretty much figured he would pick Kamala Harris. She's sharp. She's in the U.S. Senate. She ran the largest attorney general. She ran the largest Department of Justice in the country outside of the U.S. Department of Justice. She can kick Donald Trump's behind. She could go into the U.S. Senate and whip up votes because she understands how the Senate works, has relationships in the Senate, etc. A lot of people don't know about Charlotta Bass. However, Washington Post has an article dealing with this, and face-to-faceafrica.com has an article on this topic as well. And historian Jamon Jordan talked about this first before the Washington Post and before face-to-faceafrica.com came out with their articles. Jamon Jordan talked about this. And I've had Jamon on the show before. So I want to make sure I give him credit for that. But Washington Post has an article, Kamala Harris isn't the first Black woman to run for VP, meet Charlotta Bass. Now, you've heard me talk about Charlotta Bass before because she was involved in, she was a member of the NAACP. And in 1915, she helped to organize protests against the movie The Birth of a Nation. So when you hear me talk about the movie The Birth of a Nation, and you hear me talk about African Americans organizing protests against the movie The Birth of a Nation, people like William Monroe Trotter in Boston, Massachusetts, we talk also about Charlotta Bass. All right. And she's not talked about a lot in history. And she should be talked about more in history, I think. OK, but more than a half century before Senator Kamala Harris was named Joe Biden's running mate, Tuesday. Well, I'm sorry, it was Tuesday. It was Tuesday. It was days running all together. Tuesday. Another Black woman from California took the stage at a Chicago convention to make a decisive declaration. Charlotta Bass said this is a historic moment in American political life. She was a journalist and political activist, and she said this to the crowd. She went on to say, quote, historic for myself, for my people, for all women, for the first time in the history of this nation, a political party has chosen a Negro woman for the second highest office in the land, end quote. Now, while Senator Kamala Harris would be the first Black woman and the first Asian American to appear on a major party ticket, she is not the first Black woman to run for vice president. That title belongs to Charlotta Bass, who joined a long shot Progressive Party ticket in 1952, more than a decade before the Voting Rights Act was signed into law. We just commemorated the 55th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act, which was signed into law August 6, 1965. Okay. So Martha Jones, who is a historian at Johns Hopkins University, said that Charlotta Bass is one of several key figures who paved the way for Senator Kamala Harris and many other contenders for Joe Biden's vice presidential pick. As a Los Angeles civic leader and the publisher of a major Black newspaper, Charlotta Bass chronicled and commented on campaigns before leaving her own mark on politics. Historian Martha Jones told the Washington Post, quote, I don't think you can understand how we got here in 2020 if you don't appreciate the way in which Black women have built this movement. So we have Charlotta Bass, we have people like Shirley Chisholm. You have people like Angela Davis as well, okay, who ran on a ticket. I think she ran for vice president. She ran on a ticket also decades ago. So Martha Jones went on to say Kamala Harris doesn't just drop from the sky. She's a political figure whose career is very much linked to a history, end quote. Now, Charlotta Bass's chapter in that narrative starts in 1910. So this is a year after the NAACP is formed, which was 1909. And in South Carolina, she was a South Carolina native who moved to Los Angeles, California, and started working at the California Eagle newspaper. And this is according to historian Denise Lynn, who is a historian at the University of Southern Indiana. Now, Charlotta Bass and her husband became joint publishers of the influential Black weekly newspaper, the California Eagle, although she took over publishing the paper fully following the death of her husband in 1934. Now, in the California Eagle's pages of the newspaper, she criticized the Ku Klux Klan. She denounced the Hollywood production of the movie The Birth of a Nation that I talked about, which debuted February 8th, 1915. And she endorsed female candidates in local political races. Women had already won the right to vote in California in 1911, but Charlotta Bass kept thousands of readers informed on the national women's suffrage movement. Okay, we're coming up here on the break. We'll continue this on the other side of the break. We're talking about Kamala Harris, and we're talking about the first Black woman to run for vice president, who it was actually Charlotta Bass in 1952. You listen to the African History Network show right here on 910 a.m. Superstation Future Radio. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. Stand by, everybody. We're on commercial break here. All right, everybody, welcome to the African History Network show. Share this broadcast on your Facebook pages. I just finished doing a 1.5 hour panel discussion for the documentary Happy. That was on Zoom. That was with Professor James Small and Brother M. Fadushi and Taki Grant and Dr. Ashby and some other scholars. And so now we're here for the African History Network show. Everybody share this broadcast on your social media platforms. Invite your friends to tune in. We'll be back from break in a couple minutes. Also, be sure to watch the panel discussion that I did with the sisters dealing with Cardi B's WAP. I mean, the panel discussion was fantastic. When we originally did it this past Thursday, it got 10,000 views. So that's at our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, The African History Network, and our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, Imhotep. If you like this type of information, you could donate to the African History Network, $, TheAHNShow at through Cash App, $, TheAHNShow through Cash App, and then also PayPal.me/TheAHNShow through PayPal, PayPal.me/TheAHNShow through PayPal. It helps us keep doing the research, stay on the air, keep broadcasting, etc. Okay. All right. Follow us on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network. Turn on notifications there. Follow me on my YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, Imhotep, and turn on notifications there as well. Okay. So you know when we go live. Okay. We'll be back from break here in just a minute. And it's been a very busy past few days, very hectic. All right, stand by, everybody. Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 a.m. the Superstation of Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Sunday, August 16th, 2020. We are live. We're broadcasting on 910 a.m. the Superstation WFDF. We should also be on 910 a.m. Superstation's Facebook fan page. And we're also on my Facebook fan page, The African History Network, The African History Network, and my YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, Imhotep, on YouTube. So subscribe to us there. Also, if you like this type of information, you can donate to the African History Network, $ the AHNShow through Cash App, $ the AHNShow through Cash App, and also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHNShow. PayPal.me/TheAHNShow through PayPal also. Okay. All right. So let's go back to this article from the Washington Post. And this deals with Charlotta Bass. Okay. And Charlotta Bass was the publisher, first her and her husband, they were the publisher of the California Eagle newspaper in Los Angeles, California. But she was also an activist, and she was the first Black woman to run on a political ticket for vice president. This was in 1952. Okay. So when we talk about Kamala Harris, we also have to talk about Charlotta Bass as well. All right. So let's go back to this article here from the Washington Post. Okay. So Charlotta Bass in the pages of the California Eagle criticized the Ku Klux Klan. She denounced the Hollywood production of the movie The Birth of a Nation, which debuted February 8th, 1915. And she endorsed female candidates in local political races. Now, women had already won the right to vote in California by 1911, but Charlotta Bass kept thousands of readers informed on the national women's suffrage movement. Now, Charlotta Bass's commentary created change as well. Her pieces on employment discrimination resulted in the first Black hires or African-American hires at a major hospital and several big telephone companies, she said in her biography. Now, she later got involved in the Los Angeles chapter of the NAACP and Marcus Garvey's Universal Negro Improvement Association, as well as local and state politics. Now, we know Marcus Garvey's birthday is August 17th, so there's celebrations across the country for Marcus Garvey's birthday. And also August 13th, I didn't get a chance to post an article about it. I've been very busy this week. August 13th was the 100th anniversary of the creation and adoption of the Pan-African flag, the red, black, and green, which comes from the UNIA, Universal Negro Improvement Association, that was adopted August 13th, 1920 at the International Conference for the UNIA. Okay. NPR.org has a really good article dealing with Flag Day and the red, black, and green flag. Okay. That's at npr.org. And we'll see if we can pull up that article here. I've referenced this article before, and I deal with this in my presentations that I do for children dealing with the film Black Panther. Okay. The name of that article is on Flag Day, Remembering the Red, Black, and Green. On Flag Day, Remembering the Red, Black, and Green. We'll talk about that a little bit as well. All right. So let's go back to this article dealing with Charlotta Bass. So after serving as a delegate for the California Republican Convention, Charlotta Bass switched to the Democratic Party and finally denounced both major political parties entirely. Both had neglected Black, African-American, and women's rights. She wrote in an editorial by trying to prove their commitment to fighting communism in the era of Republican Senator Joseph R. McCarthy's Red Scare. Now, around this time, Charlotta Bass's friendly ties with some African-American figures suspected of communism caught the attention of the FBI. Federal agents interrogated Charlotta Bass at her office. They kept tabs on each issue of the California Eagle newspaper and attended her public speeches to send reports back to Washington, D.C. At one point, her passport was confiscated. Now, it was enough to radicalize her fully into politics. It was enough to radicalize her fully into politics. And let's see, the historian Martha Jones said, quote, "This is a moment in which Charlotta Bass can no longer be, if you will, merely a journalist." This was a moment in which Charlotta Bass could no longer be, if you will, merely a journalist. She went on to say she has nowhere left to hide. Now, Charlotta Bass sold the California Eagle newspaper in 1951 and co-founded the Sojourners for Truth and Justice. The Sojourners for Truth and Justice, which was a short-lived Black women's group named after the abolitionists and suffragists, Sojourner Truth, and they rallied and lobbied politicians in Washington, D.C. Now, less than a year later, Charlotta Bass joined. Less than a year later, Charlotta Bass joined Vincent Hallinan, Hallinan, Vincent Hallinan, who's a San Francisco lawyer, in his underdog campaign for the White House. Vincent Hallinan had been convicted of contempt of court and announced his presidential bid a day before he was set to enter prison. So Charlotta Bass took on most of the in-person campaigning. Now, as McCarthyism prompted close scrutiny of the left, the Progressive Party was not expecting to win, said Eric McDuffie, an associate professor at the University of Illinois. But that wasn't the point of the run anyway. Okay. Eric McDuffie told the Washington Post, quote, to be publicly associated with them was depending on your politics. Incredibly courageous or a foolhardy move. Okay, to be publicly associated with them was depending on your politics. Incredibly courageous or a foolhardy move. Now, during such a politically repressive movement, it speaks to Charlotta Bass's dedication to Black freedom and dignity for Black women, he said. Now, Vincent Hallinan and Charlotta Bass mustered up 140,000 votes, netting the third highest total in a race that Dwight D. Eisenhower won in a landslide. Their best showing was in New York, where they won just under 0.1% of the votes. Okay, that's a tenth of 1%. Okay, that was their best showing. Yet now the Johns Hopkins history professor Martha Jones said that Charlotta Bass's legacy is far more consequential than those results may seem. Together with figures like Fannie Lou Hamer and Shirley Chisholm, who ran for president in 1972, Charlotta Bass helped usher in the idea of a Black female candidate fully into the political mainstream. In addition to Senator Kamala Harris, other contenders for Joe Biden's vice presidential pick, such as Susan Rice, Stacey Abrams, and Representative Val Demings, have also benefited from that legacy. Okay. Historian Martha Jones said, quote, to my mind, it was Kamala Harris all the more, it makes Kamala Harris all the more admirable in her accomplishments because they are so hard won. Charlotta Bass is not a detractor. To the contrary, it shows how far we have come, Well, yeah, we have come far, but you still have some white men, and you can say some African-American men at that as well, who look at some women or some Black women as being too ambitious or something like that, but they don't look at men, especially white men, as being too ambitious. If we look at candidates running for president, or even candidates who want to be vice president, but a lot of times people who get picked for the vice presidential ticket, many times they ran for president and it didn't work. They don't get called too ambitious. I just don't hear that. I just find that very interesting. So the article goes on to say, besides the connections between the two women are more than just symbolic. The connections between Senator Kamala Harris and Charlotta Bass are more than just symbolic. 4 decades after that failed long shot presidential bid, Vincent Hallinan's son, Terrence, won a narrow race for a San Francisco district attorney. The younger Hallinan took after his father's left-wing politics, declaring himself America's most progressive prosecutor and hiring a slew of non-white officials to his office. But he only lasted 2 terms in office. In 2003, he was ousted by his former deputy, a young lawyer from Oaktown in the House, who had grown disenchanted with her boss and had her sights set on politics. The lawyer's name was Kamala Harris. So Kamala Harris defeated the previous prosecutor, Terrence Hallinan. Terrence Hallinan was the son of Vincent Hallinan. Vincent Hallinan in 1952 ran for president as a candidate for the Progressive Party, and his vice presidential candidate was Charlotta Bass. All right, so check out this article here from Washington Post. Kamala Harris isn't the first Black woman to run for VP. Meet Charlotta Bass. This is by TheAHNShow. This came out Tuesday, August 12th. A really good article from the Washington Post. We know face2faceafrica.com also had an article dealing with this. So give a shout out to Face to Face Africa. We share a lot of content from face2faceafrica.com. Be sure to follow us on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network. There's a lot of articles that I share there that I don't have time to talk about here on our show because we're only here for 2 hours once a week. But, you know, I've been here for 4 years in this time slot, so we're happy to be here on 9:10 a.m. the Superstation WFDF, but we have limited time here. Face2faceafrica.com has an article. Charlotta Bass was the first Black woman to run for VP before Kamala Harris, so you can check out this article as well from face2faceafrica.com. Charlotta Bass was born February 14th, 1874. So she's born 11 years after slavery ended. She was born in Sumter, South Carolina. Okay. And Charlotta Bass devoted her career to aggressively publicizing and combating racial inequality. She campaigned to end race-based job discrimination at the Los Angeles General Hospital, the Los Angeles Rapid Transit Company, the Southern Telephone Company, and the Boulder Dam Project as well. Okay. According to the California Museum, during the 1920s, Charlotta Bass became co-president of the Los Angeles chapter of the Universal Negro Improvement Association, the UNIA. She formed the Home Protection Association to fight against housing covenants that prevented people of color from buying homes, and helped found the Industrial Business Council, which fought discrimination in employment and encouraged African Americans to go into business. It also encouraged African Americans to go into business. She married Joseph Bass, who was co-founder of the Topeka Plain Dealer, Topeka Plain Dealer, PLAIN, and he worked as editor of the California Eagle. Also, together, the couple used the paper passionately to denounce the movie The Birth of a Nation, and they also opposed the harsh punishment of African American soldiers involved in a 1917 race riot in Houston, Texas. Now, in 1925, the Ku Klux Klan unsuccessfully sued the California Eagle for libel. In 1931, the Basses denounced the results of the Scottsboro Boys case. They were said to have also lent their support to A. Philip Randolph as he fought against discrimination in hiring for railroads. So check out the rest of this article here from face2faceafrica.com, because they deal with some history about Charlotta Bass and her husband that the Washington Post does not touch on also. Okay. And we'll post this article here on the thread of the broadcast. All right. So I know we're coming up on a break here in about 10 minutes or so. I want to go to the next topic here. Well, let me see if I can. We'll come back to that. I want to pull up an article. I saw a number of articles. Well, I saw a number of memes, not articles. I saw a number of memes floating around that talked about Kamala Harris. And there's one thing that I want you to focus on when you see these memes floating around on Facebook, right? One is the same meme being shared over and over again, oftentimes when it states something like she set the record for locking up black men. It says 1,500, something like that, right? Notice how there's never a source that's cited. Notice how there's never a source that's cited. Where did that information come from? How did you research that? What was the previous record that was set? If you say she broke the record, what was the previous record? Notice when those memes are shared, and to be quite honest with you, it's about 30 dumbasses this past week I unfriended, because when people put out a bunch of nonsense, I have no time for that. Okay. And if people want to unfriend me, I really don't care, because I have on my personal page, I have over 1,000 friend requests of people waiting for me to accept their friend requests. And I have about 4,600 friends on my personal page, limits 5,000. So you do the math. So I don't have time for nonsense. I really don't. But when you share these memes and things like this, where'd you get the information from? How'd you research it? So PolitiFact had a really good article which deals with a fact check. But I've read articles from Mercury News, PolitiFact. I posted these also on my Facebook fan page, the African History Network, and my personal page, Michael Imhotep, as well. There was a really good one from, so what I saw taking place this past week is people sharing a clip of Representative Tulsi Gabbard on the debate stage. I really don't know why she ran for president, but okay. And she was making some accusations towards Senator Kamala Harris. And when you go research what she was saying, she was misrepresenting the facts. A good article that deals with this. So a lot of people that were circulating these memes around, usually ain't provided any sources. I want you to take a look at this article. And I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this, okay? Because I'm only here for 2 hours. This is from politifact.com, where Tulsi Gabbard's attacks on Kamala Harris' record as a California prosecutor on target. Well, Tulsi Gabbard's attacks on Kamala Harris' record as a California prosecutor on target. Okay. Now, regardless of whether you like her or not, I don't get into she's married to a white man, things like that. Cause, be quite honest, well, how should I put this so it doesn't sound crazy? All right, well, I'm not going to say that. Okay. Anyway, so let's look at this. They looked at some of the claims that Tulsi Gabbard made on the debate stage, and one of the claims they looked at was Kamala Harris put over 1,500 men in jail for marijuana violations, and then laughed about it when she was asked if she ever smoked marijuana. Now, this is what Tulsi Gabbard said. Now, notice what Tulsi Gabbard said was 1,500 men. The meme said 1,500 black men. Tulsi Gabbard did not state race. Are you assuming that just all the men who were prosecuted for marijuana were black, or what? Because she didn't say men. She said 1,500 people. So the first question you should ask is, where did you get that information from? How'd you research that? That's in these memes floating around? Okay. The meme said 1,500 black men. That's not what Tulsi Gabbard said. She didn't state whether they were men or women, and she didn't state race. So how did it turn into 1,500 black men? Or is it just BS being circulated to negatively cast Kamala Harris? Is it just something to draw more opposition to her? How did 1,500 people turn into 1,500 black men? So they go through the fact check and they say there's some context missing in this claim and it's framed in a misleading way. We could not. Now, let me just say this. When I say this, this is neither for or what, regardless of what you think of her politics, anything like that. I'm dealing with fact checking. I'm dealing with the facts. Okay. I'm not telling you to vote for her or not, or whatever you think about it. I'm dealing with what was said on the debate stage and what people are circulating on social media and providing no sources to document their accusations. They said they could not independently verify the 1,500 figure, which is cited in a February article by the publication called The Free Beacon, which is a conservative online news website. They then added at the end of this article, there's an addendum that says they were able to get an exact number. So they updated this article. I'm going to get to that in just a minute. They said the article from the Free Beacon conservative online news website says, quote, at least 1,560 people were sent to state prisons for marijuana related offenses between 2011, 2016. End quote. It didn't say 1,500 black men. I don't know how 1,500 people or 1,516 people all of a sudden became 1,500 black men. I'm not sure. When I was a kid, I got some magic books, because I wanted to learn to do magic tricks. I haven't learned that one yet, though. So I'm not sure how they got that. So now when Senator Kamala Harris was, so it goes on to say, it says the data from reports from the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. Okay, let me back up. So it says, quote, at least 1,560 people were sent to state prisons for marijuana related offenses between 2011 and 2016, end quote. Now, this was a period of time when Kamala Harris was California Attorney General, not district attorney in San Francisco, California Attorney General, 2011 through 2016. Okay. It says the data from reports from the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. We, referring to PolitiFact, we requested that data from the state prisons agency. The agency's data shows there were 1,883 admissions to state prison on marijuana offenses during the years Kamala Harris was Attorney General. She's Attorney General 2011 to 2016. The agency's data, okay, from the California Department of Corrections, not a meme on Facebook from somebody whose account just popped up 2 months ago. Okay. The agency data from the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation shows there were 1,883 admissions to state prison on marijuana offenses during the years Senator Kamala Harris was Attorney General. There were another 92 admissions for crimes related to hashish, which is a drug made from cannabis resin. Notably, the figures dropped dramatically during Senator Kamala Harris' tenure, from 817 marijuana-related admissions in her first year in office to 137 in her last year in office. But that's not what the memes say. The memes say she broke the record for locking up black men and locked up 1,500 black men. And it must be right because it's on Facebook. Notably, the figures dropped dramatically during Kamala Harris' tenure, from 817 marijuana-related admissions in her first year in office, 2011, to 137 admissions in her last year in office, 2016. Now, for context, marijuana sales and possession remained illegal under state law during Kamala Harris' time as Attorney General. California voters legalized recreational marijuana in 2016, the same year Senator Kamala Harris was elected to the U.S. Senate and left her post as Attorney General of California. Also, as Attorney General, Kamala Harris would not have personally prosecuted marijuana cases. Those cases would have been handled by lower level state attorneys. But that's not what the meme says. See, the meme said she locked up 1,500 black men for marijuana possession. As Attorney General, Senator Kamala Harris would not have personally prosecuted marijuana cases. Most people understand that. But those cases would have been handled by lower level state attorneys. Now, it's correct that Kamala Harris has laughed about using marijuana, but Representative Tulsi Gabbard's claim makes it seem like she laughed about people being locked up for marijuana crimes. We did not, PolitiFact, did not find any evidence to support that. Now, running for re-election in 2014 as State Attorney General, State of California, Senator Kamala Harris laughed at a TV reporter's question about her GOP opponent's support for legalizing marijuana, adding, quote, "He's entitled to his opinion," end quote, but not offering her own opinion. Okay, so you can read the rest of the California. Okay, you can read the rest of that. Let's look at another fact check here. They give like 4 or 5 of them. We'll look at, for the sake of time here, we'll look at one more. I think it was one other. Okay, hold on. Let's look at. Okay, Harris kept people in prison beyond their sentences to use them as cheap labor for the state of California. Okay, now this claim came from a February Daily Beast article. It found lawyers in the Attorney General Harris office argued in 2014 that despite court orders to reduce state prison crowding, some nonviolent offenders needed to stay in the prison system to help combat wildfires. Okay, let me repeat this. This claim came from the February article from the Daily Beast. It found lawyers in Attorney General Kamala Harris' office argued in 2014 that despite court orders to reduce state prison crowding, okay, or overcrowding, some nonviolent offenders needed to stay in the prison system to help combat wildfires. It does not detail how many prisoners, if any, ended up staying longer than required. A spokesperson for Kamala Harris was quoted in the article saying, quote, "Senator Harris was shocked and troubled by the use of this argument. She looked into it and directed the department's attorneys not to make that argument again," end quote. So maybe we'll find out more about that. But a lot of these claims, you're going to see in a lot of these memes, they're false or misrepresenting the facts. And that's why they don't provide you with any supporting documentation, because they really don't want you to read further than the meme. Okay. Let me see. Let's look at, okay. So we had that article, and then there was one other article that I saw. Well, I read 3. There was another one here from, Mercury News. Mercury News had a good article. And let's see. I know we're coming up on a break, so we'll talk a little bit about this some more on the other side of the break. Let's look at this here. Kamala Harris fought to keep. Now, this was another accusation made by Tulsi Gabbard. Kamala Harris fought to keep a bail system in place that impacts poor people in the worst kind of way. Okay. Now, a March article by BusinessInsider.com detailed then San Francisco DA Kamala Harris push in 2004 to increase cash bail. Quote, shortly thereafter, San Francisco's Superior Court judges moved to sharply increase cash bail costs for weapons. That's right. Shortly thereafter, San Francisco Superior Court judges moved to sharply increase cash bail costs, okay, or the amount you have to put up for cash bail for weapons-related felony charges. Including assault with a firearm and the sale of machine guns. Okay. But that's not felony charges all across the board. That's not charges all across the board. It was weapons related felony charges, including assault with a firearm and the sale of machine guns. Now, the article goes on to add from BusinessInsider.com that as U.S. Senator, Kamala Harris has introduced bipartisan legislation to encourage states to reform their cash bail systems so that lower income people are not kept in jail as a result of their inability to pay steep bail costs. Now, I don't remember seeing any memes. Maybe you saw a meme about that. Send it to me. Post it on my Facebook fan page. Inbox me. Okay. I don't remember seeing a meme about her bipartisan legislation to encourage states to reform their cash bail system. Now, maybe you saw a meme that talked about that she did that. If you saw that, share that to me. Did anybody put out a video about that? I'm just asking the question. I don't know. And then we know a year ago, then California Governor Jerry Brown signed a bill to eliminate cash bail in the state starting in October 2019 in favor of a risk assessment system and non-monetary conditions of release. You can check out the rest of this. We'll post this article here. And this is from politifact.com. And I have other articles. That's why you don't see me post a lot of those dumbass memes. Okay. Question you should ask yourself, who made this meme? Why don't they cite any sources? Did the people make that meme live in the U.S. or did they live in another country? You know, do you ever ask that question before you start sharing that? Oh, we're still on 9:10, so I can't cuss. You ever you ever ask that question before you start sharing this stuff? Okay, I'm just asking the question. You listen to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM Superstation, the Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. All right, stand by, everybody. We're on commercial break. We'll be back in 3 minutes, it looks like. I went over the break, so we'll be back in a couple minutes here. How's everybody doing? Let's see here. Now, some people say I'm not voting for her based upon color. Nobody's saying you should vote for her based on color. We deal with policy. See, this is a different type of show. We don't deal with bullshit. We deal with policy. Okay. And we deal with facts and evidence. A lot of other people are not going to give you this information. All right. So I posted that article there. You go research this yourself. And then there was another one from the Mercury News. Because see, in all these memes that I saw, they didn't add sources, context, facts, nothing. And do those same people, do they have memes about like Donald Trump, putting one of his campaign donors in charge of the U.S. Postal Service who has no experience working with the Postal Service or working at the Postal Service, and they're slowing down the pace of the delivery of the mail, things like that. They have any memes about that? All right, stand by. We're back in a couple minutes here. Let's see. And we should have a guest coming up in the second hour. There was one, it was really good one from the Mercury News. We'll try to pull that up. Okay, we've got Anita, Star, Cedric. Okay. Okay, Mercury News had a really good article. Fact check. Here's how Kamala Harris. We'll deal with this on the other side of the break. This is from Mercury News. Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 a.m. the Superstation of Future Radio. Hey, I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Sunday, August 16th, 2020. We're live. The calling number is 313-778-7600. 313-778-7600 is the calling number. If you have a quick question or comment, 313-778-7600 is the call-in number. Right before the break, we were talking about Charlotta Bass. Charlotta Bass was the first Black woman to run for vice president. She ran on the Progressive Party ticket back in 1952. We talked about Kamala Harris being picked as Joe Biden's VP. Now, you know, here on this show, back in May 2020, I still hear people talk about Joe Biden needs a Black agenda and what policies they have for us. And I'm saying, okay, now Joe Biden released his 22-page Black agenda back in May of 2020, early May. So I understand everybody doesn't follow this every day and things like this, but you know, okay, all right, okay. So we gotta get some people up to speed, let them know, okay, all right. But I was talking about dealing with some fact checking of claims that Representative Tulsi Gabbard made towards Senator Kamala Harris on the debate stage. And PolitiFact.com had a good article dealing with that fact check, because those are things that you don't see in the memes floating around on social media. But MercuryNews.com had a really good article. Campaign fact check. Here's how Kamala Harris really prosecuted marijuana cases. Also, USA Today had an article written by a public defender who worked oftentimes against Kamala Harris, and she came out and talked about how Kamala Harris had very progressive policies, et cetera. She wrote an op-ed for USA Today. Go check that out as well. And Trump don't really know what to do. She gonna kick his behind. And then in the vice presidential debate, I wouldn't be surprised if Pence doesn't show up. I wouldn't be surprised if, Pence has to have an appendectomy, or, Pence, gets sick with coronavirus or something. And, I can't do it, because she gonna tear his behind up. Okay. those two geniuses are scared to death of her. All right. So let's look at this. As district attorney, Harris saw 1,900 convictions for okay, it was close to 1,900, about 1,866, something like that. Let me look here. Okay, so Kamala Harris opponents and critics have picked apart her prosecution of marijuana crimes during her presidential run, knocking her for over aggressive jailing of pot users and lambasting her as a hypocrite for saying she now supports legalizing the drug. But Harris' history of prosecuting marijuana cases in San Francisco district, Harris' history of prosecuting marijuana cases as San Francisco district attorney is more nuanced than those debate stage confrontations indicate, according to new data obtained by the Bay Area News Group and interviews with more than a dozen former prosecutors, attorneys, justice experts, and who've been following her career. Okay. More than a dozen former prosecutors, defense attorneys, criminal justice experts, and activists who've been following her career. Now, Kamala Harris oversaw more than 1,900 marijuana convictions in San Francisco. Previously, unreported records from the DA shows. Okay, this is dealing with San Francisco. The other article was dealing with 2011 and 2016 when she was attorney general. Now, her prosecutors appear to have convicted people on marijuana charges at a higher rate than under her predecessor, based on data marijuana arrest, based on data about marijuana arrests in the city. But former lawyers in Harris' office and defense attorneys who worked on drug cases say most defendants arrested for low-level marijuana possession were never locked up, and only a few dozen people were sent to state prison for marijuana conviction under Kamala Harris' tenure. But I haven't seen a meme that says that. Let me repeat this. Former attorneys in Kamala Harris' office as attorney in San Francisco and defense attorneys who worked on drug cases say most defendants arrested for low-level marijuana possession were never locked up. But I haven't seen a meme about that. And only a few people were sent to state prison for marijuana convictions under Kamala Harris' tenure as district attorney in San Francisco. Now, Nikki, N-I-K-I, Nikki Solis is a high-ranking attorney in the San Francisco Public Defender's Office during Kamala Harris' time as DA. Nikki Solis said, quote, "There is no way anyone could say that she was draconian in her pursuit of marijuana cases." Now, still, advocates wonder why it took so long for the California senator to come out in support of marijuana legalization. She actively fought a ballot measure for recreational marijuana in 2010, co-authoring an opposition argument in the voter guide, and stayed on the sidelines when a second ballot initiative passed in 2016. Kamala Harris publicly came out for legalizing marijuana only in May of 2018, after she was widely considered a likely presidential contender. Since then, it became a centerpiece of her plans to reform the criminal justice system. Quote, "We can't keep reporting the same mistakes of the past," she tweeted last year. "Too many lives have been ruined by these regressive policies." Okay. Now, when it came to the fight for legalization, quote, "She was nowhere, zilch, nada, no help," said Tom Amiano, a former San Francisco supervisor and assemblyman who has endorsed Senator Bernie Sanders for president. Quote, "Like a lot of candidates for a lot of offices, she comes to Jesus on the issue, but it does leave a bad taste in your mouth about how sincere or how authentic she is," end quote. Now, when we look at, so that's from him, and he supported Bernie Sanders. Now, this article came out in, let me see when this article came out. So I forgot. This article came out in, this was from 2019. This article came out September 11th, 2019. Okay. So I'm not sure who he's supporting now, but Bernie Sanders dropped out of the race. So conviction data during the last presidential. Okay. So it goes into the nonsense that Tulsi Gabbard said. We already fact checked that. Okay, so check out the rest of this article. It goes more into detail dealing with San Francisco, et cetera. Okay, but I haven't seen any memes dealing with like this information that I shared. So if you get in touch with the meme people, the meme making people, share this information with them. You know, you may have to speak Russian to speak them. I don't know, but when you find the meme makers, okay, share this information with them. Tell them make a meme about this. All right. How does 1,500 people become 1,500 black men? Right there, that should tell you something. But anyway, okay. JT, do we have any callers?
No, we do not.
Okay. Calling number is 313-778-7600 is the calling number. If you have a question or comment, 313-778-7600 is the calling number. If you have a question or comment, we're going to have a guest on the other side of the break. We're going to have brother Obie Ogbuna on to talk about a documentary that is coming out, and also deal with a few other topics here in that segment. And also we'll deal with the mass emphasis children's history and theater company, and the mass emphasis positive action and creativity youth brigade. So there's some good work he's doing with our youth. And okay, so that's coming up in the next segment after the break. Well, August 13th was Black Women's Equal Pay Day. August 13th was Black Women's Equal Pay Day. So August 12th, you have Senator Kamala Harris named as Joe Biden's VP pick. And then Black Women's Equal Pay Day happens the next day. So Black Women's Equal Pay Day commemorates the day that it takes for Black women to make the same amount of money that white men made the previous 12 months. Okay. It takes the average Black woman 20 months to make the same amount of money that takes the average white man to make in 12 months. All right. That's in the land of the free and the home of the brave. Forbes.com has a good article about this. Why Black Women's Equal Pay Day 2020 is so important. Why Black Women's Equal Pay Day 2020 is so important. So on average, Black women typically make 62 cents for every dollar paid to white non-Hispanic men, according to Equal Pay Today. Parental status also impacts the wage gap. Black mothers making just 50 cents to every dollar a white father makes. Okay. Parental status also impacts the wage gap, with Black mothers making just 50 cents to every dollar a white father makes. Now, the coronavirus pandemic, thanks to Donald Trump, and social unrest about racial injustice have amplified existing inequities in America. Chandra Thomas Whitfield is a journalist and podcast host of In the Gap. She said caregiving duties are falling on women across the board, and Black women are more likely to be the family breadwinners and also single mothers. She said, quote, "This year's Black Women's Equal Pay Day is especially unique because we are either working from home, or if you're an essential worker, trying to figure out childcare." Okay. This year's Black Women's Equal Pay Day is especially unique because we are either working from home, or if you are an essential worker, trying to figure out childcare. Now, at the same time, research shows that women and minorities tend to be the first fired and the last rehired during an economic downturn. So it will be even harder for Black women to catch up. Now, you know, there was a blackenterprise.com had an article dealing with a report that showed Black women lose out on almost $1 million in their working lifetime. Okay. Black women lose out on almost $1 million in their working lifetime. And if you working age of like age 18 to about 65, that's what they were looking at. Okay. And I'm going to pull up that article from Black Enterprise, because all this ties together, and this ties into the racial wage gap, ties into the racial income gap. It ties into rates of African Americans in poverty, etc. Okay. All of this is connected. And these are reasons why you need things like the Paycheck Fairness Act passed in the U.S. Senate, because it passed the House of Representatives in 2019. Is being blocked in the U.S. Senate by Moscow Mitch McConnell and Republicans in the U.S. Senate. So, okay, we'll try to find that article. I don't know where it is. Hold on. Okay. We'll try to find that on the break, because we've got so many articles here. All right, I'll find it. But you've heard me talk about that before. Black Enterprise, really good article dealing with that. Now, so the question is asked: so why are Black women already starting from so far behind? Here's what some of the research tells us. Okay. Now, all this deals with politics. Politics is the legal distribution of scarce wealth, power, and resources, and the writing of laws, statutes, ordinances, amendments, and treaties, the adoption, interpretation, and enforcement. Okay. So all of this is connected. Black women are strapped with student loans. So this ties into student loan debt for African-American men and African-American women. Okay. This ties into student loan debt. African-Americans are among those most likely to earn a post-secondary degree. Okay, Blacks in the U.S. are amongst those most likely to earn a post-secondary degree, and roughly 64% of Black students earning bachelor's degrees are women. Roughly 64% of Black students earning bachelor degrees are women. This may be a positive, but there is a financial impact. Quote, we're among the most educated, yet we're getting paid less, and we're also straddled with debt from student loans, says Thomas Whitfield. Quote, even the money we make is not our money because we have to give it back to student loans. So when you talk about canceling student loan debt, when you talk about revamping the student loan system, things like this disproportionately positively impacts African Americans. Now, it doesn't say Black student loan debt. It doesn't say Black student loan system, anything like that. A policy, a law does not have to say Black or African American to benefit you. A policy or law does not have to say Black or African American to benefit you. Student loan debt, discharging student loan debt, is going to help African Americans more so than white people. It'll help white people a lot. It'll really help us, because not only are we more likely to have student loan debt, but also the money that we earn is less. So African American men make about 79 cents for every dollar the average white male makes. African American women, 62 cents. Even at the PhD level, Black women are underpaid as well and lose money also. And I'm going to try to pull up this article here, because blackenterprise.com had a good article dealing with this. This was from a couple of years ago. So when you talk about student loan debt, it has so many ramifications. And then this ties into the wealth gap. That ties into the racial wealth gap as well. Student loan debt helps to exacerbate the racial wealth gap. Okay. But a lot of times when we talk about student loan debt, we don't make the connection between those. All right. Now, Black women shoulder the majority of work and caregiving duties. Black women shoulder the majority of work and caregiving duties. Black women are the primary breadwinners for their household, and about 2/3 head households alone. African-American women are a whopping 80%. I'm sorry, Black women are a whopping 80%. A whopping 80% of Black women are the primary breadwinners for the household, and about 2/3 head households alone. Black women also make up a disproportionate amount of the labor force, and small businesses founded by Black women have grown 164% since the year 2000. Now, speaking of African-American businesses, because I know in 2016, there are a lot of people on social media saying we don't need to vote. We just need to do economic empowerment and invest in the stock market. Okay. And I said, that's good. We need to do that, but we also need to vote also, because politics is the legal distribution of scarce wealth, power, and resources, and the writing of laws, statutes, ordinances, amendments, and treaties, their adoption, interpretation, and enforcement. And politics impacts every aspect of our life, from the water we drink to the air we breathe to the food that we eat. And politics also helps to shape the business environment that your business is operating in. So to talk about starting businesses and investing, and not also deal with politics and voting strategically, doesn't make sense. If you think it does, Exhibit A is coronavirus, because it's expected that 50% of Black-owned businesses are not going to survive this coronavirus economy, because politics shapes the environment that your business operates within. So we saw governors had stay-at-home orders, governors shutting down non-essential businesses, and there's going to be millions of businesses that go out of business. Some of these businesses are not coming back, and on the other side of the business being shut down, and you still have about 32 million people unemployed. The other side of that are the massive foreclosures and massive evictions that are coming. Okay. And all this deals with policy. Okay. Well, we're coming up against a break. Hey, you listen to the African History Network show right here on 9:10 a.m. Superstation Future Radio. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes.
Get a computer for only.
Stand by, everybody. We're on break. Stand by, everybody. We're back from break in a couple minutes. All right, stand by, everybody. We're back from break in a couple of minutes here. Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM Superstation, Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Sunday, August 16th, 2020, and we are live. Hope everybody's doing well. Share this broadcast on your social media platforms. We're broadcasting on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, The African History Network, my YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, IMHOTEP as well. Also, if you like this type of information, you can donate to the African History Network, $ the AHN show through Cash App, $ the AHN show through Cash App, and then also through YouTube, PayPal, also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN show, paypal.me/the AHN show. Okay. In the first hour, I talked about the panel discussion I did this past Thursday with three African-American women, Jade, Arrindell, Alkhemyst, and also Hecava, Mecca. Okay. Alkhemyst and Hecava, Mecca are two conscious female hip-hop artists, Black female hip-hop artists. You can check that out at our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, and YouTube. We dealt with Cardi B's WAP. This was the Women Are Priceless episode. There are no H's in the house because our women are not H's. And we dealt with Cardi B's WAP and some other different topics: negative corporate controlled hip hop, Black women's sexual liberation, combating stereotypes, fighting against white supremacy. I have to say that the flyer was designed by my friend Marnice. So I want to thank Marnice for designing that flyer for me because I didn't have time to do it. So that helped out a lot. So thank you, Marnice. Okay. The article I was looking for before the break from Black Enterprise was Black women lose out over $1 million in their careers thanks to the wage gap. Black women lose out over $1 million in their careers thanks to the wage gap. That's from October 17th, 2019. Okay. So check out that article. You've heard me talk about it before. That ties into Black Women's Equal Pay Day. Let's see. Do we, JT, do we have Obie on the line?
Yes, you do.
Okay. So we'll pick this up on the other side of this interview. On the line, we have Brother Obie Ogbuna, and I've interviewed Obie a number of times in the past. And he's also a friend of Willie Ricks, who is Mukasa Dada, is very active with SNCC, friends with Kwame Ture, Stokely Carmichael. You heard me talk about Mukasa Dada the past few weeks. So welcome to the African History Network show. Obie, how you doing tonight, brother?
I'm great. How are you?
Oh, I'm all right, man. Well, look, I know you have some updates here, man. We have limited time for this segment. So I know you talked about the work you do with children and the Children's History and Theater Company, Mass Emphasis Children's History and Theater Company. Yeah. Tell us what's going on with that. I know there are a few different topics we're going to talk about, but tell us what's going on with that.
Well, yes. Well, I wanted to begin tonight by congratulating you on the expansion of your show.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that.
Testament to your work.
Oh, thanks, man.
Your consistency. And it illustrates that the struggle for our liberation and human dignity is truly a labor of love. So we're very happy to see how you've expanded.
Right.
Since we were last with you.
Right.
The Mass Emphasis Children's History and Theater Company was born in 2011. And it is the beneficiary of the Harlem Renaissance. It's a beneficiary of the Black Arts Movement. It's a beneficiary of the African Revolutionary Renaissance that Dr. Prosecutorial and the people of Guinea did, using ballet and dance and drumming to tell their story. So, and it's a representation moving into the future that we are ready to tackle what many people consider arguably the biggest challenge we face as and without oppressions. And prior to the corona pandemic, COVID-19, SARS, Code 2. We had 4 plays scheduled for African Liberation Day. One called Revolution, which was about relationships with Saray and Mbali Kamala, who was the leader of the women's wing of the Democratic Party of Guinea. The Democratic Party of Guinea was the first political party we established during the colonial resistance in the African continent in 1946. So we wanted to chronicle that story. And Ready for the Revolution was the slogan of the Democratic Party of Guinea. 12 years later, they gained their independence in 1968. We had another play called Dem Parsley in Creole, which means let me hear you say parsley in English. And it was about the 1934 Parsley massacre carried out by the United States-backed military dictatorship of General Rafael Trujillo in the Dominican Republic against the Haitian-born Africans who had migrated to the Dominican Republic. And what he would do is he would line African people up, his military death squad, and they would make us use the word parsley. And if you had a French pronunciation of the word, they would shoot you to death. If you had the Spanish accent, they would let you go. We had another play scheduled for Los Angeles called Decolonization, Disconnection, and Repair. And that was centered around Venezuela, because for those who've been paying attention to the Obama administration sanctions in Venezuela and the Trump administration's commitment to try to bring about regime change in Venezuela, the reason is because Venezuela is the hub of what is called a descendant movement. And one of the main objectives of the government of Nicolas Maduro, which is a continuation of the work of the late Comandante Hugo Chavez, was for Africans who all came here because of transition comedy. When we were dropped off in Venezuela, dropped off in Cuba, dropped off in Panama, dropped off in Jamaica, dropped off in Virginia, dropped off in the Carolinas. If we could all come together, regardless